This is effective literacy instruction at home or in the classroom. My name is Tess. We've got Derek here, and we've got Kara and Becky on chat, which is really great. So I do want to encourage everybody to go into the chat if you have questions while we talk, and they'll let me know if you have questions and we can answer them live. So I'd love for this to be as interactive as we can be. So again, this is effective literacy instruction at home or in the classroom. We do have the saved resources that we're going to share today. So if you do want to go into that Google Doc and bookmark those or save those for later to review, a link to these slides is also going to be present in the resource doc. And we have many more of these events and a ton of free professional development, including live webinars. We have make and take so that it's actually like really hands-on and instructional. We have another event about Meeting Writable in 2 weeks that's really going to dig very deep into the research and statistics and successes of teachers in the classroom. So you can check those out at Writable Academy. And then who are we? So my name is Tess. I was in the classroom for about 8 years. I focused all the way from elementary all the way up to high school. So really focusing on reading intervention in elementary school, and at high school focusing on ELA instruction. I am extremely passionate about creating equal learning opportunities for all students. And I think technology is how we get there, which is why I joined Writable. I am extremely enthusiastic about giving students the power to create endless opportunities through their writing. And Derek is also extremely experienced in the education field.
Yeah, so I'm Derek. I'm from Wisconsin. Been in the ed tech field about 20 years or so. Work with a lot of schools and districts every single day, getting basically Writable in the door. So your students have access to that.
Yeah, and we're really passionate about supporting educators and basically have spent our entire careers doing that. So we are deeply aware of the struggles you're facing, especially this year. And so if we can be of support to you, or if you're curious what other educators are struggling with, we are always a resource. I think Kara, Becky will drop in there a link to a meeting. So if you would like to meet one-on-one with us to talk more about any of these things, please feel free to sign up. We are totally available. So I would love, before we start, to launch a poll to see how prepared everybody feels for either teaching literacy instruction this year or supporting teachers who are teaching it. And this poll, it looks like most people are at a 3 or a 4. Let's start by talking about the research behind growing great writers. I think it's a really important place to start because, basing our instructional practices in research is vital, but so is listening to our students and understanding their needs. And so it's sort of a two-pronged approach as we take in the research, and then we also evaluate what our students are effectively learning from. So I'm going to just do sort of a quick overview of the research here, because in a couple weeks I'm going to do like a full deep dive into the research. But the overview really says that writing practice feeds into feedback, and that feedback and revision process creates writing growth. That's how we get to growing great writers. So on the practice end, we talk about actually instructing our students and having them write every day, and teaching students strategies for planning, revising, and editing their compositions has had a significant effect on students' performance as writers. So that's where we see them improve in their daily writing. I think another really great point is that students develop a clearer conception of the assessed material because of increased exposure to it. And so feedback increases the exposure that students have to their work and to how they should improve and revise. And then that revision process Writing growth is driven by learning the art of revision. I think everybody who writes knows that you have to edit your work. You have to be not only a writer, but an editor, and they really go hand in hand. And so that's what creates growth for students. We do have a really amazing research paper that I encourage everyone to go read. This is a deep dive synopsis into all of the pieces of research that back effective writing instructional practices. That is linked to in the resource document. And Derek, what are some not so
So
good?
kind of the bummer side of writing, unfortunately, is only 27% of students in the US are proficient at writing, which is unfortunate. But the number basically remains the same from fourth on up through graduation. So fewer than 50% of the students also score at the basic level. And also 40% of students that take or took the ACT writing exam in 2016 lack the reading and writing skills necessary to complete a college level English class basically. And then lastly, or another thing is children who aren't reading at grade level by the end of third grade are 4 times more likely to drop out of high school, which is unfortunate.
That is, I think, you know, the numbers are tied together between students that are and where they're at in their proficiency levels and where teachers are at. A 2016 study found that fewer than 50% of teachers had actually taken a class that devoted any time that was significant to teaching writing. Less than 30% had taken a class solely devoted to writing, and only 55% said they enjoy teaching writing. You know, teaching writing isn't just an ELA, it's across disciplines. It's important in math classes too. So making sure that our teachers are prepared to teach writing on top of making sure that instructional practices are sound is really important. Writing is a threshold skill. I'm sure everybody who is here knows that writing is an important part of getting hired and your job and expressing yourself and creating opportunities for yourself. So I think a really great place to start is to talk about common ineffective practices. So things that we might be doing that maybe we didn't know we shouldn't be doing, or maybe you have seen some of these practices happen with teachers that you support. So let's sort of talk about what they are, and if anybody has any additional ones, I would love for you to drop those in chat or let us know so that we can address them specifically, because I think we can find solutions together today.
Yeah, so one of the things we often hear is we all know like there's 250 tools to use every day in your daily basis, especially now with virtual learning. So basically using too many tech tools and lacking accessibility. So the district isn't supporting something, or it's kind of a one-off thing, you know, especially during virtual hybrid learning, depending on your circumstance, or moving back and forth. Also, not having unified standards for literacy. So nobody is on the same page. We hear that so often, especially in writing, and then not sharing standards, expectations. So kind of having the visual across the board, especially in a district between, you know, ELA teachers, science teachers, social studies, civics, that type of thing.
Yeah, and I think one of the best ways to show standards is through rubrics and checklists. So that might be one way that teachers are having access to what's expected of them, and they're teaching the learning goals that they're trying to help their students reach, but also that is something that students should have access to too, so they understand and have clarity around the work that they're doing. So let's see, what else is not a great thing to do?
Yeah, so let us know if you have anything additional in the comments as well. But, you know, not having topics that are engaging, especially right now, you know, as things are changing in the world, we go back and forth between COVID and elections and everything else. So being able to customize Writable and really have your students speak to what's going on in the world today is really important. Also, you know, if you're not regularly checking up on your students as well. So if they're bouncing back and forth between virtual and you know, in person, but you're not able to check in. We have a lot of different tools where you can check in with your students and kind of have that teacher to the student check in every single day.
Yeah, and not using data on how your students are doing, whether you are teaching online or you're teaching in the classroom, having that data to inform you of their progress or where they might need additional support, and actually folding that back into your instruction to customize learning for them. That's really how we grow, and it's also about communicating with students and connecting with them. So what are some other ones? Those are our final ones. Derek, do you want to?
Yeah, so if anybody has anything else to, drop in, let us know. But also, grading and giving feedback only at the end of the assignment is really tough for a student. As you think way back, going through the process and having your, beginning draft, end draft, and no feedback in between it is tough for a student, especially right now in the virtual setting. So we have a lot of different tools where, students can get different feedback, whether it be, automated feedback, peer feedback in a virtual setting, teacher feedback, live feedback. It's all built in, as well as not teaching students how to review their own work and give feedback to their peers is really difficult. So we have a lot of things like peer review models or assisted peer feedback in Writable. So a lot of comment stems, proficiency labels, so students are able to learn on how to give peer feedback to their peers.
Yeah, and I think the final point that is sometimes most often forgotten is supporting teachers with professional learning around literacy instruction. It's not just about giving them an app, it's not just about giving them a textbook, but really giving them time and space to learn and improve and access to materials where maybe they didn't have these in their pre-teacher instruction. So I would love to know if there's any pieces of ineffective practice that I might have missed. Is there any that you guys would specifically like to hear more about finding a solution for? I can't see chat, so Kara or Becky or Derek, if anybody does have any, let me know as we move forward so that we can address those. Let's look at actual effective literacy instruction in action, whether you are virtual or in the classroom. So I think a great place to start is what is Writable, since we are going to jump into the app and show rather than tell what sort of effective practices are. So Derek, can you describe Writable in a concise way?
Yeah, so as far as Writable goes, we're really a K-12 solution for writing, whether you're teaching in class, remotely, hybrid model, and you bounce back and forth, especially this year. Also, Writable provides different assignments and curriculum, and we consider ourselves curriculum agnostic. So whatever you're using, you can customize us to really work with you. And then we also have a lot of growth data for your student writing. So students can have complete portfolios, follow with them from year to year, as well as teachers can have data meetings, whether it's like student to student, student to parent, teacher to teacher as well. And then also on the facilitation side of things, we have a lot of different guided feedback and grading that's built into Writable. So rubrics behind the scenes, helping teachers that maybe aren't ELA teachers, like social studies science teachers. Also, daily practice assessments, informal assessments, we kind of do it all. And then we integrate with a lot of different tools, like Google Classroom, Canvas, Schoology, other things as well.
Yeah, I think that's right. It's there's a lot to Writable because I think it's important to have a tool that's really comprehensive. So I'm going to talk a little bit about effective practices now that we've talked about ineffective practices, and I'm sort of going to use the framework of talking about assignments and curriculum, accessible and integrated technology practices, the actual writing and revising that students are doing, the feedback and grading that both students and teachers are participating in, assessment and growth monitoring, and then finally professional learning and support. So this is also great. Common Sense, if you're curious, I know they're sort of the go-to recommendation for many. They give us 5 out of 5 stars. They have a really great independent review if you are curious about how they view Writable and the places that they think it works best. Let's talk about what are some of the best practices that we can do while we're teaching writing. So I think one of the first ones is providing teachers with a bank of pedagogically sound assignments and curricular blocks. Not all teachers have time to prep all the time by themselves. So giving them the tools to make their own assignments, to find assignments, or even integrate a curriculum they're already using, or customize these assignments to fit their needs. Writable is curriculum agnostic, but it's also a place where you can build or hack your way to the perfect curriculum. I also think, using assignments that can include many types of supports, because students need many types of resources. So maybe that's a leveled reading, a PDF, an audio or a video lesson, especially during asynchronous learning, graphic organizers, differentiated prompts, editable rubrics, or using even a custom district rubric. And then finally, sharing that work with assignments and colleagues, or creating work that's easily accessible to an entire group of teachers within one place, so that they know where to get started and they don't have to hunt around for things. So I'm going to jump right into Writable. You can see what it looks like. I'm going to go into our Explore page. And this is where a teacher might start when they were looking for assignments. So you can see that we've got skills activities. These are really great because they can be used as curricular blocks. So this is building up to writing a specific skill. So argument or informational or narrative. Short responses are a really wonderful place for students and teachers to start. So doing some quick writes and just getting them writing, especially at the beginning of the year. It's a really easy entry point. We have lots of response to readings, so included readings that are with the writing. You can find assignments in here that are graphic organizers included with them, which can really help students who need some support in organizing and preparing before they write. We've got assignments with leveled readings from Cricket Media. So this is great, especially if some of your students are maybe at a 3rd grade level or a 4th grade level. We also have fully differentiated assignments with Time for Kids readings. So this is if you want different levels pre-built for you, you don't have to build them yourself if you don't want to. We have tons of state assessments. So say you want your students to practice for the SBAC, you can actually see how they're doing and fold assessment practice back into everyday instruction. If you're supporting English language learners, there's quite a lot of assignments there as well. Getting students ready for college, so ACT, SAT prep, advanced placement exams, everything is up to date with the most current rubrics, most current assignments and models. So I'm just going to jump into an assignment to show you what it looks like. So if we go into an assignment, you'll see what this looks like for a student. So I'm previewing this as a writer. You can see we've got a side-by-side reading right here. This is totally annotatable by a student. We've got our prompt right here, as well as our graphic organizer, and then our writing area. This can actually be an embedded Google Doc. So if students are used to using Google Docs, this won't really feel different. This may just feel like a more supportive piece around Google Docs. We also think it's really important to have the checklists side by side an assignment, so that way students are clear on what's expected of them. And when they are self-reviewing or peer reviewing their work, we guide them in how they score themselves and give themselves feedback or give others feedback. So you can see as I hover here, there's actually score explanations. And when I select a score, pop up comment stems. So the feedback is targeted and it's authentic, and it helps teach students how to give feedback, not just ask them to to comment on something, it will. And so I'm gonna just copy this assignment, which saves it. That's all you have to do. And you can see it's brought right here. And I'm gonna edit it because, you know, not every assignment out of the box is what our students need. So if I wanted to add audio or video instruction, I could just open this box right here, wave, record, save my recording, and it's right in my assignment for my students to look at. If I wanted to change the reading, or if I wanted to upload a PDF, if I wanted to change out the graphic organizer, or maybe I wanted to differentiate prompts or add in revision aid, which is AI powered feedback and revision recommendations, we can do that in here. I can also totally replace the rubric. So let's say I wanted to do a state specific rubric. You know, I could look up by genre, by category, by skill. I can also scroll through here. So let's say I wanted to do a Georgia high school argument rubric. I could use this rubric, and then I could edit it. I could move it around, change the weight. There's nothing in Writable that isn't customizable, which I think is great. And then as a school leader, you can send assignments right into my district. So this is an area where teachers can start if there's assignments or assessments or rubrics that they are going to be using this year.
Yeah, absolutely. So we support both digital and online learning, which is especially important right now. And as far as, you know, tech tools go, we're multifunctional. So you can integrate with technology like Google Classroom, Google Docs, your LMS like Schoology or Canvas, Microsoft Teams. Also, that your tech tools are supported by different accessibility needs. So I think Tess will probably show when we get into here next, kind of the audio, the audio, the voice to text, the different items that we have embedded into Writable as well.
Yeah, no, you know, not all students need the same learning supports. Not all students are proficient at reading English. Not all students are proficient in even reading yet. Sometimes they need assignments read to them. Sometimes they need to submit pictures of their handwriting rather than digital writing because they are not handwriting yet, or maybe they don't have consistent access to a device. So it's really important that even with a tech tool, you can do offline learning too. Especially this year. So I'm going to jump back in to the app. Okay, so when I go into classes, this is where I see where all my classes are. You can see that I have got some Google Classroom connected classes. I've also got a join code. So if you don't use an LMS, you can also add Writable inside Schoology and Canvas. You can even log into Writable with Schoology, which is great. We also integrate with Microsoft Teams and HMH Ed. So you can push your rosters right here, and grades push right back to your LMS or Classroom. You can assign directly within your LMS or Classroom. So this is really simple. We don't think you need to be going to a million different apps. So I'm just going to show you how easy this is to import a class. I've got one class not imported. It is really just as simple as clicking a button. So once I import my class, just like that, I'm going to go back over to assignments, and I can assign this assignment that I saved and edited. So I'm going to click assign. I'm going to assign it to my Google Classroom class right up here. And then I have some options. And so this is sort of where some accessibility might come in hand. So I can have students write in a Google Doc. You know, Google Docs have additional speech to text functionality. They have a bunch of really great fonts that are built just for students' accessibility needs, a lot of magnifying of writing. So that's a really great thing to add in here. I can assign self-review. This is really helpful for teaching students how to review their work. I can add peer review cycles. I know this is for teachers who have facilitated peer review before. Just being able to select a button to turn on peer review and have it run for you is a little bit like magic. I can add revision aid to the prompt. So if I want AI feedback, I can add originality checking, which is powered from Turnitin. And then I can add the assignment directly to the stream. So the students don't even have to go into Writable to find it. So I'm going to assign it right there. Okay, so it is assigned to my class. I'm going to go over here. You can see. Yeah.
And so there's a question about, well, what if we don't use Google? Can we just write inside of Writable? And I know you're in the middle of all of that, but
Yeah.
I think it's really important that we stop right now and say, yes, you can go into Writable, you can go into Google Docs in order for you to be able to have the additional accessibility features that live inside of the Google, platform. But Writable itself has a native editor, and it looks exactly the same. It's no different. It's just a matter of a button that you picked on the back side as a feature. And then if they write in Writable, they can export it to a Google Doc if they wanted to. At that point, there's the printing features, all those things. I'm going all through it, but I just wanted to make sure that we handled that question, that just because you went to Google Doc doesn't mean that's the only way. It's just like in technology.
Absolutely. We support Google Docs or not using Google Docs. I know it's just helpful for some teachers that already are using them, but our native editor feels and writes just like any other editor that you might be using, like Word or Docs. So that's always an option and a place to start. It allows you to add pictures and videos and all the stuff that you're used to. Okay, so here we are in a student dashboard. We clicked right from Google Classroom. And again, this is how it works in Schoology and Canvas as well. Right into our assignment. I can click read and write to go start writing. I can go start peer reviewing if there's peer review to work on. And then down here, we're gonna see a whole overview of what I've written and reviewed and scoring and really giving students agency through giving them data on how their work is going. So I'm just gonna show exactly what it looks like from the student, very obviously similar to what we saw earlier. You can see I added that video right in there. You can see here is my graphic organizer. And then this is a Google Doc, but again, this can just be our normal editor that we provide. I think some important pieces for accessibility, you notice you can have this read to you.
Student sample, grade 6.
So you can have multiple types of readings and PDFs, and it'll read it aloud to you. It will read out your directions and your prompts. It'll even read out your own writing. So if you want to hear how your writing sounds, you can do that. You can also print this for offline learning. So if you are not able to stay on a device, or maybe you read better in a printed form, students can absolutely do that as well. You'll notice, I didn't assign revision aid up here, but you'll notice students have access to assistive tools up here like originality checking and revision aid if that's turned on. They've got their rubric side by side as they write and as they plan. And so everything they need is in this tidy little area while they write. And I think does anybody have any questions about accessibility? We do have a full blog that goes really into depth about our accessibility features. Oh, one other one, sorry. You can change the menu items to Spanish. So if you did, we can go back over here, want students to be writing in Spanish, or their native language was Spanish, you can change all of this. The language that you create assignments in is totally agnostic, so it works for any language. I'm going to go back. So let's talk a little bit about actually writing and revising. So what we just saw on the student side.
Yeah, so as far as writing and revising goes, you can give students access to different rubrics and checklists, as well as you can guide students in their reviewing process. So a lot of what Tess kind of had showed as the proficiency labels and the comment stems, really a lot of the metacognition process is entailed in that as well. And then also revision supports. So they have the on-demand feedback, like the AI that Tess had shown a little bit earlier. And then we also, if they don't want to choose one of those comment stems, they can add open-ended comments. And then we also allow students to submit their digital work in multimodal assignments, such as pictures and handwriting as well.
Yeah, I'm gonna go, I would love to go back in here. So here we are, you can see I'm gonna change back to English. You can see I've gotten peer reviews, self-reviews, teacher grading on my work already. I've been doing some peer reviewing over here, and I can always go back into my writing and keep going if the teacher is allowing me to keep writing. So you can see I have put an annotated note on my reading in here. I've got a lot of writing in here. I can see what my actual feedback is, so I can see what my teacher feedback is. I can see that I've got actually 2 teachers here, so there's co-teacher feedback here. One of my teachers left me a video feedback message. Another teacher gave me some instant conferencing feedback, so this wasn't rubric tied, this was while I was writing, and I got a little notification that I had some feedback that my teacher was giving to me while we were both in the app. You can also see that I've done some revision aid on here. So this is what revision aid looks like. You can see that there's color-coded stars next to each of my paragraphs. And when I open it up, it's going to give me suggestions on improvement for structure and content. So in this sentence, it's saying, you know, maybe this is a little too short, maybe we need a little bit more evidence. But these are suggestions for students. We don't think that there is any AI that can take the place of a teacher. And it's also important for students to have agency in the writing that they create. So this gives students suggestions. On the teacher side, it does give a suggested score. If they've turned this on, students do not ever see that. But it can really help them create a better piece of writing before it ever gets to the teacher for feedback, and help them correct some of the common mistakes and errors that students might have while they write, and teach them on demand. So, you know, if a student's writing very late at night or when a teacher isn't available or at home, this is a really great support. And then we've also got originality check up here as well, so they can check the authenticity of their work as they're writing.
No
Yeah, so
question.
one of the most what we hear the most often is basically teachers need to save time. So, you know, when students submit their work, you can't be there. You'd love to be there. We all know that. And you'd love to check in like on every revision they do, but it's just not, it's not possible.
Yeah.
So with the virtual grading stack, a lot of the feedback support that we have, basically the teacher gets a more polished paper when they jump in with their feedback. And that's really important because the more students write, the more often students write. You know, practice makes perfect, basically. So that's what we really try to help the teacher with, is saving time so they get that more polished writing sample and students are writing more often.
Yeah, and you know, this isn't just about a program that guides students in revising and editing. It's really important as a best practice to guide teachers too, and give them assistive technology tools like AI scoring and feedback, allowing them to do audio or video, that live conferencing that we talked about. Also sharing grading and feedback with a co-teacher when that's possible, tying your feedback and comments to a rubric. So if teachers are used to highlighting and commenting on a piece of digital writing, you know, making sure that's tied to a rubric or checklist item so that students know how to address it. And also gaining insight from student and peer reviews. When a teacher is grading, oftentimes, I don't know, I felt a little bit like an island, that this is just my thoughts and opinions, but being able to look at a holistic view of the student's work and what others have thought about it is really informative from the teacher perspective. So when we go in as a teacher, I'm just going to switch accounts again. I'm going to show you how easy it is to just start grading. I know I was used to opening a lot of Google Docs, so it's really nice if you are using a digital writing tool already to not have to open 40 Google Docs and try and grade them. So I'm going to go to my active assignments. I'm actually going to click into an assignment that I've already graded, so you can see what a dashboard looks like. So I would click this to begin grading submissions. You can see when I do click over it, I have a whole bunch of different options. So I can do full grading, I can just check on the students that are on watch, and that's really built by the feedback from self and peer review. I can see what peers have disagreed, maybe just touch the assignments that have had revision aid on them already. So I really have all those options. And then if I want to see how a specific student is doing, I can see who's on watch, who's on target. this is where I would add some live feedback so I can see when they were last in the app, how many words they've written, and I can just enter some instant feedback right here. And then I can, go into their actual work. So we can go click right into last graded. And this takes us into our stack just as the same as the grade submissions button does. And here you can see I have left some feedback that I've tied to a rubric over here. You can see the feedback is tied over here. I've given a score. I can see peer reviews. I can see the self-reviews. I can see my co-teacher's reviews and her video. I can see my own review over here that I want to keep working on. I can add my own video. And then this is really great is I can just flip back and forth through grading. So I don't have to open a bunch of documents. And it also saves my comments. So if I have something that I want to say to a bunch of students, I don't have to type it a bunch of times, which is great. And again, this gives me access to revision aid and originality checking. So that way I too have assistive feedback tools while I'm grading and I don't have to go into another program, which is really helpful. So I know we also hear a lot about using Writable because it makes things equitable. We've heard that a lot from teachers this year. The customizable features, the accessibility features, the ability to have anonymous peer review. This really makes teaching accessible for if some of your students are at home, if some of your students are in the classroom, if you're teaching entirely virtually. This is a really helpful tool for that, especially because we have so much data that we give you on how students are doing. So what do you think about assessment and data monitoring, Derek?
Yeah, so we use the programs to provide data that's understandable. So we have a lot of different reporting in Writable, as well as we have support for that reporting. So like Becky and Kara have jumped on here. They're part of our customer success team, our support team. We have a lot of different, support avenues, especially when you're trying to analyze, dissect that data, as well as I know we jumped into a little bit about reporting, but it's really amazing where you can bring up, maybe a fall and a winter assessment, or whether it's formative, any type of thing, or even an assignment, and compare skill standard growth. And then also identifying celebrations for those students. So you can show a parent, a student, how much growth they've seen from fall to winter as well.
Yeah, it's really important that the programs that you're using provide data that's actionable and easy to understand, and not just a bunch of numbers at you, right?
Right.
So we want to prepare students for whatever they have to be writing, and sometimes that is assessments, and it might be formal assessments like state tests or AP tests or college entrance exams. I love that you mentioned sharing data with coaches or parents, but it's also important that we make sure the data is really secure and private. So it's important when you choose an ed tech tool that you're using one that doesn't share data or student work with any third party. Or I know in Writable, we're not even, reading what students are writing. It's really important that all of that is very private. So just a little bit what the data is going to look like for you. I'm going to go. We showed you a little bit what data on a single assignment looks like, so you can see where students are at. Maybe there are students who need specific support while they're writing, but it's also important to track students over time. So you can choose by a genre, you can look at multiple grades, you can even, if you're a school leader, look at multiple teachers so you can get a really big overview of how students are doing. But I'm just gonna pick these two assignments. I'm going to generate a report for student progress over time. So I can drill down by the category, the skills that they were measured on, the standards, and even those revision aid scores. And then I can look at who's on target, who might be on watch, who might have no results. And I can really easily export this as well. So if I were logged into Google, I could send it to a Google Sheet, or we can do a CSV. But you can even do individual student reports over here as well, which is great. Should we talk a little bit about what I think is one of the most important pieces, and something that Kara and Becky are so incredible at creating for teachers, which is support and PD.
working with customers kind of on the front end of things before they purchase. Um, it's obviously really important for customers to know, am I going to be supported? What kind of training am I going to have? What kind of, self-access, especially during these times, am I going to have? And Becky and Kara are on, but, kind of a roadmap of when a customer purchases. Basically, Kara or Becky handles the account after that, and they provide you with so many resources. They meet with you one-on-one in a virtual environment, obviously, and just really provide, their advice, their next steps, which I hear back from people after they purchase 12 months out, and they're just amazed at the support they receive.
Yeah, we've recently launched Writable Academy, which is a pretty amazing resource for teachers. So we have a million events. We've got specific events about using Writable. We have really pedagogical events that are very hands-on. We've got the ones like you're joining today. We even do custom webinars for groups of teachers. You can earn CTE credits by watching some of our past webinars. We've got a really impactful podcast. We've got almost 50 episodes so far with some of your favorite authors and writing influencers like Soretta Hammond of Culturally Responsive Teaching in the Brain, Jennifer Saravallo, Carol Jago. We are really passionate about supporting teachers, not just in using a tech product, but actually in their instruction and curriculum. And when you're inside of Writable, you can even click this little icon and chat with us live. So I can send us a message and I can just talk to somebody. So whether you have a question about using this, or you have a question about how you can improve your teaching, or if you're looking for an assignment, we're really always there to help you out, which is one of my favorite parts about this. And we have heard this was really easy to use for distance learning. We supported a lot of online schools before things went virtual for a lot of other schools. And so we're just so proud that we can support the need that's become apparent this year. And I'd love to take any questions if any have come up. If you don't have any, but think of any that might be coming up, you can schedule a one-on-one meeting with us. I'm sure they'll drop that in the chat. You can sign up for more events at Writable Academy or watch our past events, and you can always email us. We really are just people here to help you. So awesome. I'm so glad everybody could join us today. Thank you so much, and I hope everybody has an amazing, relaxing weekend.